Good afternoon, everyone. We are the Group 15 and we are going to discuss about the destiny of the Filipino people under the essay of Dr. Jose Rizal, The Philippines a Century Hence. Learning objectives. At the end of this chapter, the student should be able to first, summarize in their own words Rizal's essay, The Philippines a Century Hence. Second, present Rizal's argument on what the Philippines will be like in the future. And lastly, conduct their own arguments on what the Philippines at present will be like after 50 years. Before we proceed to our discussion, let's define first this single vocabulary, which is the Spanish Cortes. Spanish Cortes is the government body in charge of drafting laws pertaining to Spanish and its colonies. So, in other words po, Spanish Cortes is a representative assembly or parliament. This refers to the part of the government of the country of Spain that is equivalent to our Congress today. So, it is the legislative branch of the government that has the duty to propose law and pass them. And it has two parts, which is the upper and the lower houses. Okay, so now I am going to present our main topic, which is the Philippines a century hence. So, Jose Rizal's Filipinas dentro de 100 años, or what's so called in English, the Philippines a century hence, was serialized on September 30, October 31, December 15, 1889, and February 1 or February 15, 1890. So, it was realized in the 4 articles of La Solidaridad of Madrid, and this essay talked about the glorious past of the Philippines. It recounted the deterioration of the economy and exposed the causes of the native sufferings under the cruel Spanish rule. So, part of the purpose in writing this essay was to awaken the minds and the hearts of the Filipinos concerning the oppression of the Spaniards and encouraging them, the Filipino, to fight for their rights. So, in this essay, Rizal is attempting to answer the question of whether the Philippines will remain a Spanish colony or not. So, before we proceed to the next slide, I would like to ask everybody this question. For you, does the Philippines is still under the Spanish colony? So, we are going to answer this at the end of our discussion. So, according to Dr. Jose Rizal, it is necessary to open the book that tells to our past before its destiny can be predicted. So, unsa may pasabot ni Dr. Jose Rizal ani? So, the essay Philippine a Century Hence, it presents compelling arguments on what the state or our country will be like in the future, which is today, which is karon. But in order for us to answer it, in order para sa ato matubag ang question, which is at tong gipangutanan ako kaganiha, ana si Dr. Jose Rizal nga we must at first look back at our country's past. We need to look back to our history, kung ano ang nakaraan ng Pilipinas, and this was the word of Dr. Jose Rizal. Mo ni iyang ginapasabot. So, since we need to look back man jud sa past in order for us to answer the question, I am going to present one of the reason or causes why the Philippines is suffering before. So, one of the reason is katong nag-implement ang Spain og military forces as a consequence of the country depopulated. Second is ang poverty is lumaganap siya ba, poverty became widespread, and katong mga families and farmlands kay it became neglected. So that's the reason one of the reason why the Philippines was suffering under the Spain.
Deterioration and disappearance of indigenous culture of the Filipinos. It began the gradual destruction of the native Philippine culture. Filipinos started losing confidence in their past and their heritage, became doubtful of their present lifestyle, eventually lost hope in the future and the preservation of their race. Passivity and submissiveness to the Spanish colonizers. They had resigned themselves to their fates. The awakening of the national consciousness among the people and united them. The spread of enlightenment the Ilustrado class allows. Third article of Rizal's essay. Rizal raises in this essay is whether or not Spain can indeed prevent the progress of the Philippines. Keeping the people uneducated and ignorant had failed. National consciousness had still awakened and great Filipino minds still emerged from the rubble. Keeping the people impoverished also came to no avail. On the contrary, living a life of eternal destitution had allowed the Filipinos to act on the desire for a change in their way of life. They began to explore other horizons through which they could move towards progress.
Hi guys, my name is Maynard Antonogan and I am the next reporter of Group 15. Let's start. Third article of Rizal's essay. Exterminating the people as an alternative to hindering progress did not work either. The Filipino race was able to survive amidst of wars and famine and became even more numerous after such catastrophes. To wipe out the nation altogether would require the sacrifice of thousands of Spanish soldiers, and this is something Spain would not allow. No? Ito yung mga panahon ng pananakop ng Spain sa bansa na kung saan nag-resist gud ang Filipinos sa Spain na ginabuhat na sa Spain ang tanan para mapugngan ang pag-aklas sa Filipino. Pero nagabackfire lang sa ilaha and it cost so many lives of Spaniards na namatay dahil dito. Next is what Rizal had envisioned in his essay came true. In 1898, the Americans wrestled with Spain to win the Philippines and eventually took over the country. Theirs was a reign of democracy and liberty. 5 decades after Rizal's death, the Philippines had gained long-awaited independence. Dito is where Spanish-American War in 1898 na nagresulta kung saan nanalo ang mga Amerikano sa Spain and nakuha na nila ang kontrol sa Spain sa Pilipinas from Spain. And ang mga Amerikano teach the Philippines kung paano mamahala sa sarili nating bansa and nag-introduce ng liberty and democracy sa Pilipinas. And after that, the Americans give the Philippines independence in July 4, 1946. And later on, si Rizal naging national hero in the Philippines for their role in advocating for self-determination. Next is, this was in fulfillment of what he had written in his essay. His history does not record in its annals and lasting domination by one people over another, of different races, of diverse usages and customs, of opposite and divergent ideas. One of the two had to yield and succumb. Ibig sabihin dito, if one people is nag-attempt og total domination sa isa ka tao, may higher chance na ma-fail due to different cultures, ideologies na mag-clash na nagakos na ang subjugated people will resist and potentially overthrow ang mga oppressors. Example na ang Pilipinas and Spain.